What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Bar Understood Quick Take. I'm your host, Hicks. And as always, I want to thank all of my listeners and remind you, if you appreciate the content and find it informative, to please share, subscribe, comment, and click the bell so you'll get notices as, new quick take and videos are uploaded. In this quick take, I want to address something that I came across recently about this Indian billionaire. He's an investor from Canada, Chamath Palihapitiya. That's his name. He's one of these guys who, of course, he's a conservative who feels that he has a right to comment on black culture, and basically he's another one of those purveyors of misinformation. When it comes to us, and I just think that every time these people rear their head, that we have to be aggressive and confront them and pointing out the inconsistencies in their revisionist history. So this involves a recent spat that he had with Mark Cuban. Of course, that's the guy who owns the Dallas Mavericks. But what this guy Palihapitiya said was that companies in the North, because they chose to become quote unquote woke, that these companies were now losing business, and that these companies in the South, they are doing much better because they have begun to shun what he deemed as this woke ideology. And so after he made these comments, and basically to really hop on what he said that U.S. southern states were outperforming their counterparts in the North, where more companies typically adhere to a progressive ideology, while in the South, they tend to be more conservative. Again, as you'll see, and as I'll explain, that's just demonstrably false. But it represents something more sinister, which I'll also explain too. But what this guy Palihapitiya wrote was, when you go woke, you go broke. For the first time ever, 6 states in the South, Florida, Texas, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee are contributing more to the United States GDP than the Northeast quarter of Washington, New York, Boston, and the other states in that region. He went on to say that just in the past few years, there has been $160 billion swing in income between these two groups, with the South amassing more than 100 billion and the Northeast region of the country amassing only 60 billion. Now, to his credit, Mark Cuban, he called him out on it. And Mark Cuban challenged him by just basically asking him, can you name one woke company or a company that you've deemed to be woke that has gone broke? And Palihapitiya, he then shared a list of 473 companies that he said had gone bust. And he said this list isn't entirely of woke companies, but I suspect a few of these companies fit the bill. Now, Cuban challenged him again, and he basically pointed out that you shown us a list of startups, and this list of startups is failing and are weak for other reasons, and basically this. So Palihapitiya, he dropped another link into the debate where he said that a list that he put on X includes many non-startups, and it's for 2022 only, but other years are linked therein. I'm sure some of these will also meet the mark. So he had listed other companies that he said had went broke for basically going woke. The chat finally died out when Cuban told Palihapitiya that if you're so sure about companies that have shut it due to their woke ideology, then you should just list them. Don't do this conservative thing where they'll put like a half truth, which is, yeah, maybe some of these companies did go bankrupt, but then they attach that narrative to because these countries went woke. Cuban, he went on to note that this issue surrounding companies and the so-called "go woke, go broke" mantra. He stated that personally, I don't think what happened to any of these companies had anything to do with being woke or partisan, not even close. He then added that I think this is about the social media being so performative. Come up with something that gets people amped up and leverage it as far as it will take you, which is what I said. And it's something that conservatives do with DEI as well. They've done it with critical race theory. So it's repetition. It's repetition of false narratives. But if you continue to repeat it, then you do have swaths of the country who will take it as true. And, and the reality is that, some people who look like us will even take it as true. But I'm glad that there are people there, myself included, who will highlight these things for you and explain why they're demonstrably false. We need to know these things because too much of our culture and too many things that relate to us are allowed to be mischaracterized and they go uncorrected, and that's dangerous. So, like I said about Palpatine, I did my own research and I discovered that his claims were demonstrably false. When I entered into the GDP as it relates to the Northeast corridor of the country and these states that he mentioned, the numbers weren't even close. So again, what he said was demonstrably false. But I also want to touch on something because it's something that I see happening a lot. You look at Palpatine, he's of Sri Lankan descent, but he fits the mold of these other conservative Republican people from India who feel that they have a right to criticize or analyze negatively Black culture, and that list would include Vivek Ramaswamy, Dinesh D'Souza, Nimrata Nikki Haley, and Bobby Jindal. Now, all of these people are conservatives. But I want you all to understand something about these individuals. They have been critical of our culture. They have decried any notion that America was founded on slavery. They've decried any notion that America has only become one of the wealthiest countries in the world solely because of slavery. And they decry any notion that the remnants of slavery, Jim Crow, are still with us to this very day. Now, I would say to these individuals that they're only free to enjoy some of the things that they take, well, I won't say they take for granted. I'll just say some of the freedoms that they have. They're only in this position because of the blood, sweat, the tears, and the perseverance and the sacrifices of our ancestors. The Black folks in America who've always challenged this country to do and be better. Now, we all know that in this country, I'll go back to, for example, as I list ways of how they have specifically benefited from the gains of Black folks, our ancestors. I'll start out with the naturalization clause of the 14th Amendment. Okay. Of course, that clause basically states that anyone who was born on this soil is a citizen. We all know that clause, it was appended to the Constitution in the aftermath of the Civil War. Now, the 14th Amendment, the naturalization clause, that has specifically benefited Nimrata Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. It enabled both of them to become U.S. citizens because they were born here. Okay, now let's go to another instance, which is affirmative action, which is another thing that we fought for. And affirmative action is what allowed Vivek Ramaswamy to attend Harvard, even though he stood in a debate and basically lied to the country, or I'll just say he criticized affirmative action. How can you criticize something that enabled you to be in the very spot that you're in now? You know, again, it's hypocrisy at its finest. There was the decision Brown versus Board of Education, which we know essentially desegregated schools. Now, this is interesting because Brown versus Board of Education, you know, and all of the blood, sweat, and tears that we had to put in to make that a reality, that enabled D'Souza to attend Dartmouth. It allowed Nikki Haley to attend Clemson. It allowed Bobby Jindal to attend Brown. And although the guy, Palapatia, he attended college in Canada, he owes his ability to attend the University of Waterloo to the civil rights advocacy of a sister. Her name was Viola Irene DeMond. And for those of you who don't know who she is, she was a Black Canadian. And in 1946, she challenged racial segregation by refusing to remove from the whites only section of a movie theater in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She was ultimately arrested and she was convicted for a tax crime related to the seating. But it was her sacrifice that started the civil rights movement in Canada. So again, even though he didn't attend college in the United States, he owes his gains to a Black woman. So it just basically, you're starting to see the pattern here, that these people are allowed to capitalize off of our gains, but now they become basically doormen for white supremacy by being critical of what they deem as our culture. Nevertheless, let me continue. I don't give you these truths for the benefit of these people, as I said. Rather, I give you these truths to enable you to protect yourself when these false narratives arise, and to remind you that those first and second generation immigrants of color who use their criticism of African American community as a means to pervade white supremacy, that they only enjoy this freedom that they awarded in America based solely on the struggle and the resistance and the courageousness of the Sojourner Truths, the Harriet Tubmans, the W.E.B. Du Bois, the Medgar Evers, the Nina Simones, the James Baldwin, the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther Kings. You know, the list goes on. All of these beautiful Black people who have allowed others to stand on their shoulders, people who risk their lives to create a better future in this country and to make this country live up to the words that are in that Constitution. We have to often remind these people that they are standing on their shoulders when they choose to make these hollow narratives. So we have to remind them of that. But I won't stop there, though, because I felt the need to give you the historical connotation of the word woke so that you'll have a better understanding of what people like Palapatia seek to attack when they use this term and they attack it. Okay? The term woke is something that originated in the early 20th century, and it became a common part of our slang through one of the earliest instances I saw was the artist Leadbelly. He was born as Huddie Ledbetter. Okay. Now, this brother, he used the term based on a song that he made. A lot of you may not be familiar with who the Scottsboro Boys were, But he was discussing in his 1938 song, he made a song after the Scottsboro Boys. The Scottsboro Boys, they were a group of 9 black teenagers who were falsely accused of raping 2 white women in 1931. And they were all sentenced to death, okay? And they were eventually freed, but, their lives were forever impacted. It was just another instance of black teens being falsely accused of the rape of white women, which was a prevalent theme during that time. But in that song, he urged his listeners to stay woke, to keep their eyes open to the injustices faced by these young men. The phrase during that time, it was embraced as like a survival mechanism, because in black communities, it was used as a way to stay alert to deception, particularly by law enforcement during that time. But, Leadbelly's use of the term, it highlights its historical significance and its connections to social awareness and activism. And of course, his words continue to resonate with us to this day. I want you to take a listen to this video from back then and listen to how he ends his interview. Take a listen.
Judy, what did the Scottsboro Boys do anyway to get in all this trouble?
Well, they was down there and they supposed to have been riding on a freight train. And they riding in the boxcar and they run up on some white women. They had on pants and they was riding too. All was supposed to have been beaten away up to coming this way. And so down in Alabama, I guess the train stopped in the yard down there somewhere. Well, and some of them found all the boys and girls in the same boxcar. Some was different cars. And so I guess it's some of the people down there, they just said, well, they see them boys now with them white women. That was the trouble about it. Then they went out and made some loud cry about the boys being there with the women, you see. That is all it was to it. They just saw the women. They didn't see nothing else wrong. But anyhow, they put the boys in jail, and in that 6 long years, well, the state, all the whole United States got together, and they got out 4 of them, and they come to New York. And the lawyer what got him out, I know him pretty good. I've met him. And he showed me the Scottsboro Boys, and I shake hands with him, so I made this little song about down there. So I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
As you see, even during those times, he wanted all of us to stay woke, okay? Now, the term was also used in 1940 by the United Negro Mine Workers. They launched a strike in West Virginia against discriminatory pay. They basically had found out that they were getting paid substantially less than their white counterparts. And a black union leader, he spoke out on it. And what he stated was that we were asleep, but we will stay woke from now on. So again, as you see, as early as 1940, it was a way to keep us aware of what America could do to us as far as lying, cheating, and so forth. So, it was something that was used to keep us alert. Okay. Next, it was in 1962, there was a Harlem-based writer, William Milden Kelly. And he used the term for a piece that he wrote for the New York Times back then, which was called, If You Awoke, You Dig It. And the essay talks about black slang and its invention and the reinvention in retaliation to its appropriation by white people. Williams' essay, while it doesn't use the term woke beyond the title, it's worthy of being described as such because he was offering a prophetic commentary, and it's sobering now as it was back then, considering of how the word woke was appropriated and how now it's basically being attacked. Okay. In closing, it's important to remember that when you hear the cable Fox Newses, the Palpatiers, the Ron DeSantises, or the Donald Trumps of the world use the term woke or wokeness, chances are they're referring to you and they're referring to us. But what I won't allow them to do, I won't allow them to co-opt this term. or make me ashamed of saying stay woke, since we know that staying woke meant being sure not to let those who practice whiteness put your black ass in jail for false charges. We know that it means not letting those who practice whiteness cheat you out of your hard-earned money, as we learned from the Negro mine workers. It means not standing by idly while the Supreme Court weakens our voting rights, while they weaken any efforts of diversity by using the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, to strip away gains that we made, through affirmative action and DEI. Even if I don't specifically agree with these things, I can't deny that there was progress under affirmative action as well as diversity and equity. Okay. And it most certainly means, as our brother Ta-Nehisi Coates told us so eloquently, it means basically be alert to not let people who practice whiteness take your black body from you, because we've seen time and time again that our black bodies can easily be taken by a system of whiteness and white supremacy. So definitely stay alert and stay woke. Now, I'm going to quote my man, Paul Mooney, because I think it's important, to leave on a note that will uplift everyone. And again, just remind all of my listeners that don't ever be ashamed to say the term, and don't be ashamed for challenging people when they use the term in a derogatory way. Because again, chances are they're using it to attack us or to attack the gains or our culture. So don't ever be ashamed of using the word. But I'll just quote our guy, the great and the late great Paul Mooney, which is that black excellence is surviving and thriving in a world that's constantly trying to oppress you. And another saying of his, which is one of my favorite, black people don't hate white people. That's a false notion. We hate white supremacy. So to all of my listeners, once again, I thank you. And I'll leave you by just saying these two words. Stay woke. Thanks for tuning in.